The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepnaz Podcast. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today. And today, we're talking with Pastor Rob about his most recent message. And we started a new series called Community, Friends with Godly Benefits. And we're talking about kind of some ways to make connections with other believers and the benefits of that and why that's a biblical thing. So welcome in, Pastor Rob.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's good to have you. So we are on to kind of a new focus for a couple weeks.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about kind of the impetus for all that.
Yeah. Well, it's when I told everybody in staff meeting that we're going to be doing this series, I'm basically kind of talking about, community and our small groups and stuff like that. And I told them I was going to preach a series called Community, Friends with Benefits. All the younger staff, they're like, oh my gosh, you can't do that. Like, you don't even know what that means, do you? And I'm like, I do know what it means, but I'm going to take something that the world stole and use it for good too. So the idea, if you know what if you know what friends with benefits means, it's like you're friends and you don't have a committed relationship, but you experience sexual benefits on the side kind of deal. Well, right. We're obviously not talking about that, which is why the art person put in godly benefits in there.
I'm trying to be the mediator.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. But there are incredible benefits that we experience in the body of Christ when we are experiencing real biblical community. And I kind of started the message off because we're talking about community, why we need community, what the real need for that is today in the culture that we live in, and start kind of thinking about, the opposite of community. Community is when you're in a relationship, a meaningful relationship with someone, and you provide care and you receive care. But there's a lot of people in our culture who are not involved in meaningful relationships. And the result of that is that they experience loneliness. And so I was just doing some research to see what, I know that's a big deal. I know a lot of people experience that. But So I'm like, well, what are the stats on that? And so it was really interesting. I found the study I found was from Harvard and talked about how 57% of men and 59% of women in America feel seriously lonely. And that's more than half, obviously, but that's a lot that many people, men and women, would feel seriously lonely, because there's different stages of loneliness. Like sometimes every once in a while, seriously lonely was on the far end of the scale, and almost 6 out of 10 men and women in the country.
Well, there's very few things in this country that 60% of us can agree on.
That's true.
So
very true.
60% of us can agree that we're lonely. That's pretty amazing.
Well, and it gets even, the statistics get even higher when you go to younger people. If you look at adolescents age 13 to 19, 69% of them feel alone often or sometimes. And then if you go up to like just one more bump in the age bracket to 18 and 25, which is our young adult age group, 61% of young adults feel serious loneliness, meaning they feel lonely frequently or always. And so it's a big deal. It's kind of I don't know if you would call it an epidemic, but it's a really big deal that many people in our culture would experience loneliness. I mean, there's more people on the planet now than ever before. And so there's more opportunities for meaningful relationships and interaction with people, but we're not good at it. And on top of that, you have all the other ways that we can interact in relationships today that didn't exist, even when I was growing up.
I mean, perhaps that's the biggest irony is more ways to communicate right now in our present day than ever in the history of the world. Yeah. And yet more people feel lonely.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting if you talk to people and you're like, well, I have hundreds of friends on Facebook or on Instagram or on X or whatever it is. And we say I have hundreds and hundreds of friends, but when the chips are down and I need somebody or I need support or encouragement or whatever, I don't know who I would go to. Mm-hmm. And so what you do see, though, is people posting things on Facebook that in essence maybe would have been better if they had a meaningful relationship with a person that they could talk to. And so I think you see on social media people posting, really personal feelings about things that they're dealing with and going through that are uncomfortable for people to read and see and hear, especially if you don't know the person, but it's their only place to do it because they have not built meaningful relationships with other people.
And it's really just I've seen it where it's just kind of a desperate cry of like, if I post this out there, will anyone respond? Is there anyone listening out there?
Yeah. Well, Mother Teresa said that loneliness is the leprosy of modern society. And of course, Mother Teresa died a while ago, but she's speaking about that. And that's so true, so powerful. I had a quote in the message on Sunday. Says one little kid had it all figured out. He says, with billions of people in the world, somebody should be able to figure out a system where no one is lonely.
Wow.
And, it's just the idea of a little kid, like, oh, there's so many people. Why are we lonely? And, you could get into a whole nother series of messages about why we are lonely and what are the causes of all that and stuff. And there's a lot. But if I go back to that little kid's quote, with billions of people in the world, someone should be able to figure out a system where no one is lonely. One of the problems that we're starting to see in our society is that people are figuring out a system, and it's not such a good one. And so there's really kind of this new trend in the world to combat loneliness, and it's called AI. One of the things that I think is interesting is that when I look at, when you think about all of the things that God has created for his people that are good, right? Every good thing, no matter what it could be, meaningful relationships, inside a committed marriage relationship, God has given us the beautiful gift of sex. There's all kinds of gifts that God has given to his people that are good and meaningful and sanctified and holy and help us. But one of the things I've noticed over the years is that every good gift that God gives us, the enemy tries to mimic in some way.
Yeah.
And his mimic is basically a subpar substitute or some kind of perversion of what it is that God has given to us. Community is one of the gifts that God's given to his people. And we'll talk about it in just a few minutes. But what I think is interesting is that the enemy has taken this beautiful gift that God has given to us, and he's helping people, or he's, even the impetus behind people creating this subpar substitute for community. And it's a big trend in our culture today. And what I'm talking about is like artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. And so the idea is that, we're made for community. We'll talk about that. We need relationships from each other. But in a culture where so many people are lonely and they can't find that meaningful relationship, they go to find it in another place. To me, it's a subpar substitution from the enemy, and there's real dangers behind it. And so I didn't know a lot about it, but I've heard here and there, artificial intelligence and companionship that comes from artificial intelligence and all that. One of the studies I read this week said that 75% of teens and young adults use AI to combat loneliness, practice social skills, explore fantasies, and seek non-judgmental support.
Wow.
And I don't know how true that is. I mean, it's a study. I could tell you where I got it and everything. But if that's true, 3 out of 4 teenagers are trying to find in artificial intelligence the things that they could and should be finding in a real meaningful relationship with another person, whether it be their parents or grandparents or friends or other meaningful adults in their lives. And because they lack that, or they lack the skills to have those relationships, they're turning to these other places. So I was like, I didn't know a lot, and I feel like I should know some of these things as a pastor. So I did a little bit of research, and I found 6 places, 6 major providers of AI things. And I'm not going to say all the names of them, but one of them is, it has 35 million users worldwide. And with this particular platform, it supports voice chats and role playing. So I can literally have a conversation with something artificial intelligent. It's through a screen kind of thing.
Right. I
can have a conversation. It can say things back to me, ask me questions, or even reply with empathy to a feeling that I might express that I'm dealing with. Another one focuses on deep evolving relationships with memory retention for personalized interactions. So I can have a conversation with this AI platform today, And when I come back tomorrow, it might say, hey, yesterday you said this. How are you feeling about that? Or how did this or that go? Like it remembers the conversations and comes back around like a person who cares would and asks you questions about it. Then there's another one that provides, it allows you to interact with fictional characters and is often used for romantic or creative role-playing games. So you can create a character. Let's say you're a guy and you don't have a girlfriend and you want to be able to have a deep, meaningful conversation with a girl. You can create an AI character of your liking, and you can have these conversations with the female voice and do all, have these conversations that we could and should be having with real people.
Right.
Another one, this was big in Japan. I think it's kind of made its way here a little bit, but it's a holographic AI. And so it's like there's this glass tube. It's not huge, but they actually have life-size ones. And there's a projector at the top and the bottom, and it projects a holographic image of a girl. She has a name. It's the same person for everybody now, but they'll come to the point where you can create your own. And you can have these interactive conversations with her. And it's billed in Japan as a companion for people who live alone, which offers a more immersive experience. And then it connects to all the smart devices in your home. So you could tell the girl in the hologram, turn on the lights, and she would turn on the lights or turn them off or change the channel, whatever. But you can also have this conversation with this hologram, and there's expressions on her face, her body moves, and all this other kind of stuff. And it was designed for young men in Japan who were single, didn't have girlfriends, to be able to learn how to interact with other girls. Wow. And again, it gets to be, you can just imagine where it's going to go, right?
Sure.
Then there's another one that I learned, and this is maybe the more scary of them all. It offers a lifelike humanoid robot that combines AI with a silicone body for romantic and physical companionships. So they're literally making life-size bodies that look and feel real, and these I don't know what you call them, maybe humanoid robots or whatever, respond to touch. You have a conversation with them. They could sit there, their mouth moves, their face moves like it's a real person having a conversation. So it's not like interacting with a screen or texting or something like that. I say something to the robot and it says it back, and its mouth moves and everything. They're not even like, they're expensive, but they're not super expensive, and they'll get less and less expensive as our technology advances. But the other piece of that is that it offers romantic and physical companionship. So they're made in such a way that it responds to touch, and it will do things. And just imagine what I'm talking about. And when I think about all these things, this is like God has created us with these needs to have relationships and to give in relationships and to receive in relationship, emotionally and even physically. And what's happening now is that because for whatever reason there's a disconnect and so many people are unable to connect with other real human beings, we're going to do it with AI, artificial intelligence. We're just at the beginning of this revolution, and it's only going to become more and more out of control. I hear things about it. I wish I knew more about it, and I probably studied more. I saw on the news the other day, and this was maybe this is maybe what sparked me to think about this. They're called reborn babies, and they're dolls that are crafted to mimic the appearance and feel of real infants and create emotional connection to people who might seek that. And so, like, you could Google it or whatever, and you can see, but they like legitimately look like real babies. They feel like real babies. They make sounds and move and do things real babies do. And there's probably some need for that in some way that maybe helps people who are going through some problems. But it's like if you can't have a baby, or you don't want to have a baby, or this is what you want to have, you can have this, and it's all artificial intelligence stuff. And while this, the message in the series isn't about that, and someday we probably need to talk about that, because there's a lot of concerns about humans having relationships with artificial intelligence, it's somewhat scary. But anyway, at the end of the day, all these are just human attempts to help us meet a need that God has created within each of us, and that is to have a deep and authentic relationship in community with other people.
Well, I think all of those things that you've mentioned just speak to the severity of the desire to have community. Like, look at the effort that's being put into figuring out a way where people can connect to something that's not even real.
Yeah.
And they've, they're looking at ways that they can communicate or learn to communicate, which I find really ironic that I would learn to communicate to real people by practicing with a fake person.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's really what is being sold. And it really doesn't sound far from the same old tactics that the enemy has used from the very beginning to try to replace what God has put as the model.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's all this really is a very modern day, cutting edge, technologically revolutionary, old strategy of taking something God's given his people that is good, and let me pervert it, and let me give it to them and think, if you have this, then you have the real thing. And it's not. The real thing is always the best thing. Yeah. And the real thing always comes from God. So when we talk about community, probably that's, you go around the room with 10 people in it and ask what community is, you get 10 different answers.
Sure.
And they'd all be somewhat right. But what I'm talking about when I talk about community, in at least in the church, is that community is a group of people who are doing life together, who are committed to loving each other as much as they love God. And when I think about that question, how do you come up with that answer? It's like, someone once asked Jesus, what's the most important thing for me to do? And Jesus says, well, the most important thing in the world is that you love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and your strength. But then Jesus went on. The guy didn't ask what the second thing was, but Jesus told him anyway.
Yeah.
The second one is that you love your neighbor as yourself. Like, love other people. And so it's like the priority is in my life, relationally, is that I have a relationship with God and I love him and express that love to him and I receive love from him. But for a lot of Christians, it seems like it stops there. Yeah, I love the Lord, but I don't love other people. Well, Jesus said the second is right underneath that, I should love other people as well. And you think about this, the early church found the recipe for this, and they talk about it in Acts chapter 2 when the church is really just beginning. And I just want to read this passage of scripture.
Sure.
And it says in Acts 2:42, it says, they, meaning all the followers of Jesus, devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, the fellowship, the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe, and many wonders and miraculous signs were done by the apostles. Here's the community part. All the believers were together. They had everything in common. They sold their possessions and goods, and they gave to anyone as he had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes, ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of the people. And it was so good. Like, the whole world saw what was happening, that they wanted in on it, and the Lord added to their number daily those people who are being saved. I mean, and I think that, there's obviously clear power in the gospel and what Jesus did, and when we hear that we can have not just a second chance at life, but a new start altogether, there's power in that. But I have to think that there was power in the people who were around, seeing the community they were experiencing. Like, it says no one had any needs. And if someone had a need, someone sold what they had, gave it to those who had need. And everybody's needs were taken care of. They were being loved. They were receiving love. And I just have to imagine that if the world could see that kind of thing today, it would be attractive to them, and they would want that. Yeah. And that's where I feel like in the church we can do a better job. We can do a better job of being an example of community, being an example of what it means to love each other. And I think in the church we have there are places where that happens well. There are people who are connected in community. But just because you come to church on Sunday or watch online or you show up, whatever, doesn't mean you're really experiencing community. Sunday morning, you can see people and talk to them, but really doing life together on Sunday morning. You know, doing life is to sit down and look somebody in the eye and say, "How are you doing?" And they say the same thing back, and you interact with each other, you support each other, you know. And it's like, if I have a need at 2:00 in the morning, I know who I could call, and it's not going to be a post on Facebook.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and that's what I think that we're missing. I think that, like I said, at least at Shepherd, there's some places where that's happening, but I would love for it to happen on a grander scale, that it would be much larger, that everybody would be able to have relationships with people that they feel like they can count on, and not just to receive things, but to give, because giving is as important as receiving in these relationships. And so,
well, as you were talking earlier, we were talking about a lot of artificial things. And then as you get into your message, you're talking about some realities. And so tomorrow we'll get into the 3 realities that we were able to pull out of that.
Sounds good.
And if you are looking, you can always email podcast@shepnaz.org, and you say, "Hey, you know what? This rang true to me today. I do feel like I need some community," and we can help you find some people that are willing to walk alongside you and be part of your life and offer some of that community. Also, you can check out everything that's going on at the church by going to shepnaz.org. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. For Pastor Rob, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.